All right, in 5, 4. And here we are. This is ridiculous already. Myself, Colin. Hi.
Howdy.
Hi. We're here in the studio, and literally in the studio today. Because you built one. Well,
yeah.
I built one. You built one. Hi.
Our guest today is Steve Lake, A.K.A, because you will always be Stylin Steve Jackson.
Yes.
Would you like to give us a little intro? What is it? The Wizard of Words?
The Master of the Mic, the Wizard of Words, the prolific pontificator, Stylin Steve.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the mic spot. That's what we decided. That's what I decided on anyway. It's going to be called the mic spot.
It is. I enjoy that.
All right. I'm Mike Barrington. That's Colin Fardy. Stylin Steve Jackson. I'm excited.
Steve Lake in the house.
Yeah. This is going to be fun.
I have no idea where we're going or what we're doing.
All right.
That's fun.
You two wrote the cue sheet, not me.
I did. And I got a couple questions to start off.
I was looking at it.
See, this is the second time. This is the second time in a row
No.
that you got your computer on the go and it's taken way too long. You need to start using paper.
You need to just calm your bird, and that's staying in there, because I have a list, and my list is here, and I was reading it to see where did I want to start with this podcast.
We should have figured that out before we started.
Go ahead and ask your questions.
Steve,
Yes.
you are heavily involved in Sci-Fi on the Rock.
Yes. Just a little.
Someone like myself, I've never been to Sci-Fi on the Rock, always held up due to work complications. Tell
Shame
us
on you.
laymen why we should go to Sci-Fi on the Rock. Give us the rundown of everything that goes on at Sci-Fi on the Rock.
You should come to Sci-Fi on the Rock because it is the biggest, the best, geekiest party in Newfoundland and Labrador. That can happen in the run of a year. It's 3 days of amazing panels on stuff you didn't know you were interested in, and special guest actors who come in, and we have about 60 vendors selling all manner of merchandise. You never know what you're going to find that you might like, and it's just people coming together and enjoying being fans of television and movies and anime and geeky and nerdy stuff, and even some mainstream stuff that goes in, because people may not consider themselves a geek or a nerd, but they'll find something they like in here. I mean, people that watch The Big Bang Theory, there's Big Bang Theory merchandise, just to go back to mainstream. It's hip to be a geek. It's cool to be a nerd. Come down to Sci-Fi on the Rock and enjoy yourself.
So give us the range. Like you talk about, there's a lot of like anime, and it goes from mainstream to pretty obscure. What would be the most mainstream thing you've had down there versus, say, the most obscure?
I'd say the most mainstream. One of our actors, we had Colonel Ty from Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, come down a couple of years ago. Everybody knows Mike Hogan when they see him. They'd recognize him from Republic of Doyle. He did a couple of spots there. He did Battlestar Galactica. We had Linda Boyd down, who'd never done a sci-fi convention, but she's done a couple of horror movies. And she was in Republic of Doyle as well. It was a great time talking to her. The most obscure stuff is anime stuff that I can't pronounce because I'm not Japanese. But the costumes look fabulous.
It's okay. Mike has trouble pronouncing Japanese names too.
Me, yeah.
Yeah. I handed over the reins of our costume contest to our MC, who we fly in from Nova Scotia, just so I wouldn't have to pronounce the Japanese.
I have trouble with Spanish,
I haven't told McCluskey that, but that's why I did it.
All right. So, like, what was some of the stuff that you can, like, rave about that happened this year at Sci-Fi on the Rock? And is there anything you can kind of give us a lead into that may or may not happen next year?
The first thing I can rave about is the Sheraton Hotel. It was our first year down there. We moved the convention for the 10th anniversary. Can't say enough good about the space, the staff, the everything that is the Sheraton Hotel. It's laid out so well and felt really not crowded. When you have 2,500 nerds, and that's what we got over the run of the weekend, was about 2,500 people coming through, and it just never felt cramped at all. Second thing I would rave about is our guest actors this year that we had in. Kirby Morrow, if you grew up listening to watching Dragon Ball Z, the Canadian version, he was the voice of Goku. He was Michelangelo in the Ninja Turtles live action movie back that we remember and enjoy.
Really?
Yes. The Doctor from Star Trek Voyager was in, and Eugene Simon plays Lancel Lannister on Game of Thrones currently. He was here and is such an amazing gentleman, and actually we found out he's a history buff and is so into everything that he could learn about Newfoundland and its ties to England and everything to do with World War II. it was just fantastic to sit down and talk to an actor about this. You're like, I'm talking to Lancel Lannister, but we're talking about the history of Newfoundland in World War II.
Yeah, so you're basically sitting down talking with someone who has a name abroad, and he's, I guess, an established actor. And he's come into your province, and he's basically asking you historical facts.
Yeah.
And I guess that could be quite a trip.
That was great. It's part of the reason I love doing it is meeting these people and just talking to them as people. Like, not the whole starstruck thing. I've only done that once.
Who was it?
Fraser Hines. He was an actor from the classic Doctor Who series. And I kind of grew up watching him on TV, and we brought him in 2 years ago. And when we went to do a podcast interview for the Whostorian that I host, and I just completely fanboyed out, and my co-host had to do the whole interview. Now, when we got off air, everything was fine. I was just talking to Fraser one-on-one like it was. But when we tried to formally do an interview, I just couldn't do it. Totally fanboyed out.
I can totally relate to that, and we're definitely going to come back to the Whostorian because I know that's something you've been doing for quite a while now.
Almost 5 years now.
Got a significant investment in it, and to be honest, and it's something that I've been interested in, but I've never actually seen an episode of Doctor Who. And I don't really know what the allure of it is. I've had people telling me, because like I said, I'm a bit of a nerd myself, and I've had friends being like, oh, you have to watch this, and I'm not a huge sci-fi guy though. And one of my best friends is hardcore always, oh, you have to watch it, you have to watch it, have to watch it. Yep. But there's just so much volume and stuff there.
Well, there's 50 years worth, there's 34 seasons.
Well, exactly. So it's like, where will you start, or which doctor, or which storylines,
I can tell you exactly where to start and what to do. That's easy.
You tell me where to go.
Tell you where to go? In 1996, Fox got the rights for some bizarre reason and did a backdoor pilot to bring Doctor Who to the American audiences, and they did a made-for-television movie starring Paul McGann. So I would start you off there with the 96 movie just to get used to two doctors, because they're in that. You get to see the character sort of evolve a little bit, get a little bit of background story, and then off you go. From there, you move to the 2005 series and go on. I would never send anybody back to the classic series, as we call it, because by today, people watching TV today, by today's standards and today's special effects, when you're going back to the 60s, you're talking about a budget that accounted for, duct tape and fishing line is what the aliens were made of, and you can see the wires. And that's great for people that love cheesy movies. Like, I know I like occasional cheesy horror movies.
I do the same thing. It's great.
Like when you watch Evil Dead 2 and see the eyeball fly across the room and you can see the wire on the eyeball, I live for that. That is awesome to see, but that's the way the old Doctor Who is. So before you throw somebody into that and they're like, oh man, that's crap. I can't believe that effect. That's horrible. Give them something that works with a budget. So
you can go back and watch that after if you're a big fan and you've kind of digested the new stuff.
Yep.
And
if you want to learn more about where the series came from, then you can go back.
Yeah, go back and see the history of it. I mean, I'm an old movie fan too. Like, there's nothing worse than watching, I guess, a new remake of a great movie and seeing the new special effects and stuff put in, but them destroying the story or pulling away the charm that the movie had.
Then the other thing you have to explain to somebody going back to the classic series is there's 121 missing episodes.
Really? So where did the episodes go?
In the 60s and 70s, before the VHS market came along, the BBC just didn't have storage room for all of this film. So you have TV shows, not just Doctor Who, there was other BBC TV shows at the time. Yeah. The film was either recycled or incinerated because they didn't have storage space for it.
Yeah, all the Python stuff nearly got lost.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was Terry Gilliam
saved it.
Where someone he knew saved it. Was like, I've got all the boxes of your shows.
Yep.
And he's like, huh? So, yeah.
So there's 121. They keep getting... There's little episodes that get found, like, in a TV broadcast repeating station in Ethiopia that just never sent the tapes back after they got them. So there are little dribs and drabs that keep getting found.
I guess that'll happen over the years too, though. But that actually does surprise me in terms of, like, you're watching and you're, I guess, looking at the back catalog, and all of a sudden you come across episode 124 doesn't exist.
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
It was definitely common practice for a BBC. And it's a horrible thing to think about.
And then the VHS market exploded, and they realized, oh god, what did we do?
Yeah. They're like, oh, no.
Should have stuck with beta.
Never. However, I think as of like maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, just before NTV switched to HD, they were still beta.
Just before NTV switched to VHS.
Yeah, that's basically what I mean.
Who knows? They might have something hidden away of belonging to Doctor Who. I would love to find out.
They might. They might. That's a question to...
They got a lot of stuff back from the PBS stations that never had it back, so...
Cool. You're looking at me funny. What's that all about?
No, I was just saying.
Do you want me to start asking questions?
Hey, I got a bunch here. I was just saying. Do you want an opportunity?
Turn it into the Colin spot.
Do you want an opportunity to talk, Mike?
Yeah. Well, I had questions pertaining to Sci-Fi on the Rock. So is it cool if we
let's bounce
segue back
loop
into
this
that
car
for a
back
little
around?
bit?
Sure.
So Sci-Fi on the Rock, and I'm obviously... I apologize. I've never been there before.
That's okay.
It just never
We can
felt
fix
like... we will, because I keep hearing amazing things about it, and it's just not something that's really totally piqued my interest in the past, and it hasn't worked out, work, whatever. However, I do know it had very, very awesome, humble beginnings.
Yes.
And I'd like to... Let's take us on a little history run.
The history
of
run?
Those humble beginnings at the old Chateau Park, because I know that's where it started.
Year one was at Chateau Park Hotel Mount Pearl.
Yeah.
Two of my very good friends, Mr. Darren Han and my stepsister Melanie Collins, were working together at the time. And Darren had been to a bunch of conventions on the mainland and helped out with some of them. And he was working away in a shop one day and said to Melanie, "You know what? It's a shame we don't have a sci-fi convention here." And she said, "Well, why don't you do it, dummy?" And that's literally how it happened. And in a group, they got a couple of friends together and set up vendors and set up people that wanted to come in, and they set up for Hotel Mount Pearl. I was asked to come in to host a trivia contest.
Right. Which has been your baby since?
It wasn't at the time.
Okay.
Another gentleman wrote the trivia contest, and it was done with a slightly different format.
Okay.
The entire Mon Geek Society was wiped out in one round.
Oh.
Which to this day I keep reminding them of.
So tell us what happened there.
These questions were insane. This was, what's the color of the paint on the DeLorean's bumper? What does William Shatner have for breakfast when he gets up in the morning? This was obscure even by my standards, and I write some hard questions. And the Hotel Mount Pearl ended up getting overrun with they expected maybe 250 people to show up.
Sure.
600 people showed up.
Wow.
And Hotel Mount Pearl was like, "So next year you're going somewhere else. We can't handle this."
Really?
Yeah.
It was the first year they told you you're not going back.
Yeah, right after the first year.
Really?
Yep.
I seem to recall it going on longer than that. But
No,
I guess,
it was only 1 year at the Hotel Mount Pearl. And then it was moved. Then at the end of that, I got brought on I got welcomed into the committee. It kind of gelled into an organizing committee at that point for number 2. And we moved it to the Holiday Inn.
Sweet.
Because they had more room, obviously. And we had 8 great years at the Holiday Inn. The staff down there was phenomenal and couldn't do enough for us when we came knocking every year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they may have moved a couple of weddings just to accommodate us over the years.
Yeah, I mean, they knew what was coming.
Well, when you see you see the job sites at the beginning of March, you'll see like the Holiday Inn and Eastside Mario's advertising for extra staff. And that's just for April.
Yeah.
Because they know what's coming in April. And then this year we moved down, like I said, to the Sheraton. And they really had no idea what was coming.
They did not?
No, they did not.
Oh.
And we warned them. We told them. I got a call on Wednesday before we were doing setup on that Thursday. And it was the Sheraton. And they asked, like, "You used to go to Eastside Mario's?" I'm like, "Well, it's the only restaurant really around that area to eat. So, yes, that's where we went." You didn't tell me they got 2,500 people. Yes, I did. I've been telling you this all year. We're going to have about 2,500 people come through. Okay, so we're going to do A, B, C, and D. That's when they realized it's real.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they heard from the Holiday Inn what was going on, and they're like, "Oh God,
oh no!"
But seriously, I can't say enough good about how the hotel was, and it just all came together very smoothly and just ran like clockwork.
I actually, last year when you guys were at the Holiday Inn for the last time, I found myself in Eastside Mario's, sitting down, eating dinner, and I knew what was going on, and I was kind of like, "Oh, cool." I was with my aunt at the time, and she just kind of gave me a funny look at one point, and I said, "What?" And she said, kind of, looked with her eyes, to draw my attention in a certain direction, and then she whispers, "Is that gentleman wearing bed sheets?"
Oh, McCluskey. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I know exactly what you're talking.
I had to look it up. I was like, "Who is that guy?" But
his name is Michael McCluskey.
Yeah,
he goes by the name Fat Apollo.
Yeah.
But from Battlestar Galactica, the new series when it rebooted, I think it was season 3. Yeah, okay. One of the characters, Apollo, had put on a significant amount of weight for season 3, and Mike just ran with it, and he had a classic set of Battlestar Galactica bed sheets that he took to a tailor in Dartmouth, who made him a dress shirt and cape out of these Battlestar Galactica bed sheets.
So that was my aunt. She just kind of went, "Is that?" I don't.
So she picked out that it was bed sheets.
She did.
Yeah.
That's a keen eye.
She was like, and I was like, "It's okay. It's sci-fi on the rock."
He's now become Newfoundland's adopted son. He appears at HalCon, which is Halifax's big convention in November. He goes around Halifax area to various charity events and helps raise money and does fundraisers. He even has his own merchandise. He's got keychains. He's got buttons. He's got a Fat Apollo chocolate bar. It's chocolate and potato chips in a bar, and it's actually really delicious. There was a contest that a chocolatier in Halifax ran for which celebrity would win to get their own chocolate bar, and it was an online poll, and he won by a landslide. He's actually been named Halifax's sexiest celebrity 3 years running.
Nice.
He lost out, I think, last year to Ellen Page, and has tried to start an online rivalry with her for that. But he is such a genuine and amazing guy.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about him.
And we've adopted him, and AtlantaCon and Corner Brook has adopted him as their unofficial MC. We all bring him in, and he's just touring the Atlantic provinces now.
Awesome.
But McCluskey is great.
Yeah, it was a great introduction. It was just a great little story I had that I wanted to bring up.
Is that guy wearing bed sheets? Yes, he is.
I was like, don't worry about it. And then like 3 little... I want to call them like Japanese, like pixie looking girls. They just kind of walked in and sat in the booth next to us, and I was like, "It's okay. It's just sci-fi on the rock."
Yeah,
yeah, they're good people.
It's completely normal, and everybody is what I love. It's part of what I love about it. Everybody is accepted. Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot about that, like, I guess, in documentaries and throughout other stuff. I mean, obviously, I don't know if either of you guys have seen it, but the documentary on BronyCon.
Yep.
I thought it was really interesting, to be honest. I mean, you're watching it, and it's not a culture that I'm involved in or I've seen much on. But, I mean, I guess it's something that really took off, and they've kind of accepted everybody as their own, and I don't know, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's just a place to come and have fun and not be judged, and you'll find, if you're into something, you'll find somebody who's into your fandom too. I mean, there's everything that you can think of, from comic books to anime to mainstream sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, all that, but it's all there. And
pro wrestling, maybe?
We have had pro wrestling brought up. Robert Maillet.
Yeah,
Kurgan. He's a mainstay at Halifax. He came in one day as a fan at like HalCon 2 and got mobbed, and then they were like, he's like, "Do I pay admittance?" They're like, come in. He's like, "I want to pay for my ticket." No, you could be a guest here. And he's been a mainstay ever since. He just even if he's not booked, he shows up just to say hi.
Yeah, that's great.
I have to say, because I have met him through wrestling a couple of times, and he is probably the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I tell the story to guys outside of this podcast, but he almost offered to tuck me into bed one night when we were on tour with wrestling. He's such a sweet guy.
I've been asked a couple of times by a couple of different wrestling promoters over the years if we could help bring in somebody and run a show in conjunction with to save on costs. But every time it comes around to get asked is after our budget is spent.
Yeah.
And it's like, sorry.
Yeah, well...
You know.
Well, talk about the planning for the con.
You don't really need... What I'm just going to say to that point is you guys don't need that. Like, you don't need the addition of a pro wrestling show, per se, because you are already this gigantic entity anyway.
No, but, I mean, budget-wise, if somebody wants to split a cost...
Well,
you know, that helps out.
Sure.
Planning-wise, we can't get the committee to take any time off. This year, myself and our chair, I'm vice chair, the chair of the committee, Tara Murphy, the day after the convention, we're like, guys, log off, go enjoy life, do something.
How long was the off time?
A day. A day. I'm meeting.
We slept the day after.
Yeah. I'm meeting with the hotel on Friday to sign the contract for next year. I'm not announcing the dates till I have the ink dry. We have deposits down on 4 guests, which I can't name because there's a DNR in place, but the planning is
Do
there.
not resuscitate? What?
No.
I don't know if they're coming.
Not DNR, an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. We have oh man, it's going to be amazing. But the planning doesn't stop. This is a beast that runs away with your life. This year, actually, because everything was so big for the 10th anniversary, I had to take 2 to 3 months off. I think it was 2 months off from the Historian.
Really?
Because I just could not put the time together to sit down for an hour and do a show. It just didn't happen. And I'm hoping that's not going to happen for 11, but 11 is going to get bigger than 10. So
yeah, I mean, how could you not? Just keep getting better, or bigger and better in spite of yourselves, you know?
Oh God, I actually have a 5-year plan. If I'm still I'm not going anywhere, because I say I'll keep doing sci-fi as long as it's fun, and I keep getting elected. I've actually got a 5-year plan in place to be where I want to see sci-fi go within the next 5 years.
Sure.
Because you can't not do that in this day and age.
Can we get a snapshot of that? I mean, obviously you've been growing steadily. It's bigger and bigger. And I mean, there are, like you mentioned, HalCon, Atlanticon. And I'd kind of like to know more about those too. Like, are they yearly? Are they bigger, the same size?
They're yearly. HalCon is the same size, if not bigger, because they've got a bigger community in Halifax to draw from. They take over the Halifax Trade and Convention Centre every November, and it's 3 floors of amazing. I've been over once, and I'm hoping to go back this November. Their organizing committee is like ours; they don't stop. They have this, on par the same level of guests that they bring in, and it's the same. It's a 3-day party. It's amazing. Atlanticon is on number 5 now. Yes, Atlanticon 5. It's actually the 7th convention going off in Corner Brook. There was 2 years was another organizing group called Newfoundland's West Coast Con, then there was a year break, and now there's 5 Atlanticons. They operate on a smaller scale. They've grown to the point that they're taking over the Pepsi Center in Halifax, in Corner Brook every year. We put together a convoy from St. John's that's anywhere from 5 to 15 cars of people that head out for the weekend, and we just take over Corner Brook.
Yeah, I remember, like, you religiously go to this, don't you? Yeah, because I remember from day one when Steve got his license, he was gone.
I'm gone. I'm road tripping.
And I think that was one of the first things you said. I got my license, and I'm preparing to go to Corner Brook.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that first convention! Oh my God, the growing pain, being there to see the beginning, because myself and Darren were advising the first one, and I love to relate the story that I said. There was something happened with their sound guy, their media guy for the weekend. He just wasn't able to make Sunday. And so there was presentations that had to be done, and there was equipment that he owned that was now gone and missing, and trying to piece stuff back together. And so they came to me and said, Steve, what can you do? I'm like, oh God. And I had half a podcast studio and cords galore and my laptop around. Actually had to get an online service to convert a presentation from a Mac format to PowerPoint for Windows. So it could work because nobody had a Mac. And I was jury-rigging wires all over the place. And I said, is there a mom-and-pop computer shop here anywhere? They're like, well, Walmart's up. I'm like, no, Walmart won't work. They will not have what I need. I know this.
Yeah.
I need a mom-and-pop computer store. And they're like, scratching their heads. I'm like, come on, you're nerds. You're supposed to live at these places.
Where can we buy parts that's not Walmart?
Yeah, exactly. And we'd been there the whole weekend. And Monday morning, like, I made everything work.
Sure.
I stumbled through.
You do.
We got connections working, but it might be one speaker, but hey, it works. Monday morning, as we were getting ready to leave, I went down. We were in the Greenwood Hotel in Corner Brook. I went down to the Crown and Moose.
Lovely place.
Yeah, I went down to... we keep calling the Crown and Moose the Moose and Squirrel. I don't know why.
Moose and Squirrel.
Moose and Squirrel. And I walk in, and the whole weekend we'd been sitting in the back of the restaurant. But on Monday morning, the sun was shining in off West Street, so I said, well, I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the sunlight and have a nice breakfast. Sit down at the table, look out the window at West Street. Directly across the street from the Greenwood is J.W. Allen's.
Yes.
I'm like, nobody could tell me this yesterday.
Nice. Now, because right next to the Greenwood is a lovely little pizza place.
Luigi's. I love Luigi's.
I get a toasted sub every time I go there.
We walked into We were at a dance for Atlanticon.
Oh,
and
social.
They had a social and tied a couple on, and we left there, and we're like, "What are we?"
Did you tie them on or tie them off?
Tie them on. We're like, "What are we gonna do after having a few wobbly pops at 2 a.m. before we go back to the hotel?" Pizza. Of course. So we walk into Luigi's and there's a giant sign on the wall that says shawarma. Mm-hmm. And of course, this was around the time the Avengers came out. Mm-hmm. So, shag it, we had shawarma.
Nice.
And that has become a tradition, a convention tradition for myself.
Yeah.
When I go to Corner Brook, I have shawarma. And when anybody from Corner Brook comes in for Sci-Fi on the Rock, they do a cross-island shawarma delivery for me.
Oh, nice.
Do you wear your Iron Man costume while you eat the shawarma?
No.
Oh, see, that's a little bit disappointing.
I got the Thor locks going. So,
Oh, okay, there we go.
I almost got my picture taken with like a Mexican Iron Man down in New York City.
Nice.
Yeah, but he smelled like pee, so I declined.
We had,
he also would have wanted money.
we had one of our, who's become one of our most indispensable volunteers right now, Ryan Skanes. He came to the a couple of years ago. He came in dress shirt, dress pants, the hair done black, goatee drawn in, and hit a homemade arc reactor.
Nice.
So we called him Budget Tony Stark for the entire weekend. But the work he does now is incredible. Like, he built a Daft Punk helmet that is fully functional. The display goes along and does whatever he wants. He has a speaker built into it so it plays music.
Wild.
It's fantastic. And he walks around dressed as Daft Punk at the convention, and just people get a kick out of it.
Well, and that's something else that I was going to bring up. I've heard some of the reviews from this year, but apparently some of the cosplay reviews from this year and in years past, even from people like on the mainland who are full-time convention goers, say the stuff here is top notch.
There's Ryan, and then there's two other gentlemen, three other people that I can single out. There's Hamilton Cornish, Gary Murrin, and Erica Bussey, who are makers in their own rights, and it is amazingly mind-blowing to see what these people put together. Hamilton actually won George Street Festival Halloween a couple of years ago dressed as Megatron.
I remember that.
You remember the Megatron. That won at Sci-Fi on the Rock, too.
Wow.
As well, this year, like, him and Gary have built marine armor from Warhammer 40K. They've built Megatron. Them and another friend of mine, Kevin St. Pierre from New Brunswick, they showed up at Sci-Fi on the Rock dressed as Spartans in full Spartan armor. They were joined this year by a group from Halifax, the Maritime Heavy Armor, who are kind of an offshoot of the 501st Legion. I don't know if you know those guys. They do charity work. They dress up as Star Wars armor, do visits to hospitals, visiting sick kids, and raising money for charity like that.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so an offshoot of that is the Maritime Heavy Armor. They include not just Star Wars, they include any kind of armor you can think of, which is hilarious because they just got a guy who's a retired chief from the Navy who comes in dressed as Master Chief from Halo. And it's an amazing costume. He's even got the sword that lights up and the whole 9 yards. But they saw Gary and Hamilton's work and were blown away. And Gary and Hamilton were like, we're supposed to be blown away by you guys.
Well, and that amazes me. Just like not even that people do it, but just the fact that it's on that scale and it looks so good and it's so diverse.
Yeah, and we've actually used it for some of our advertising. We had them in the Warhammer armor standing on George Street. I think it was something like "Get your team together" or "Suit up." That was one of the posters for Sci-Fi this year.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that one.
That's
pretty awesome.
Or "Get your squad together." That's what it was. Get your squad together. We had another one of our committee members, Kit Sora. She's a photographer as well. She makes an amazing amount of costumes, mostly of Disney princesses. And she was Ariel in one shot, sitting on a cliff looking at an iceberg.
That is phenomenal.
And she made the whole thing. It was what these people do.
She's a pretty bright person. I know her dad actually.
Yeah.
Her dad's a CLB boy.
Yes,
I know him pretty good.
What these people do amazes me. She's in the band.
Yeah.
So and it's all homemade, like
it's all homemade,
completely engineered from home from materials you buy at like Home Depot, whatever.
The majority of what Gary and Hamilton, yes. You guys will remember because we've been around wrestling long enough. You remember the interlocking mats we used to use?
Still use
under the floor, like on the wrestling ring.
Yeah, kids play mats.
That's what the armor's made of.
Really?
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess
wood.
it's easy to shape, easy to
heat it up with even a hairdryer, and it can be molded.
That is,
and then it retains its shape.
See, I would love to see
it's a high density foam
videos or even like lives watching them kind of at work and working magic.
They've done workshops. They're getting used to doing workshops now and being asked to demonstrate their work, and it's just amazing to watch it all come together.
Awesome.
And I know for a fact one other person in this province is currently hand knitting a Wookiee suit.
Wow. Now, okay, see, I mentioned New York a minute ago.
Yep.
So there was the Mexican Iron Man,
Yes.
but there was also this trio walking down the street. No, it was four. Yeah, it was four of them walking down the street. But there was an odd man out.
It was a trio of 4 people.
It was a trio of 4 people. No, it wasn't a trio. What would you call 4 people walking down the street? Just 4 people walking down the street?
Sure.
Excellent. I'm not very well educated. Okay, so it was Chewbacca,
Yep.
Darth Vader,
Okay.
a stormtrooper, and Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Who's
They were
the odd
walking
man
down,
out?
right? They were walking down the street. They all had their masks lift up.
Yeah.
They were all smoking cigarettes, passing them back and forth.
I love it.
Yeah, it was in front of Virgil's barbecue.
It just Virgil's was great.
It was not. It was
was-
horrible.
yeah, you're right. It was okay.
Southern barbecue in the middle of Manhattan. What could go wrong?
Well, like day 2 of Sci-Fi on the Rock, the Maritime Heavy Armor came in dressed casual, we'll say, as opposed to costumes. They were all wearing stormtrooper helmets, Hawaiian t-shirts, and shorts.
Nice.
So stormtroopers go
Very
Hawaiian.
nice.
The stormtroopers are on vacation.
And they were led by Duffman.
Sometimes you just need a break.
Duffman
Oh,
showed
yeah.
up. Oh yeah, Duffman, and he
Duffman
was
can't
great.
breathe.
He did.
Oh, no.
He did the full voice.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was like, you're hanging out with stormtroopers. Duffman needs better friends. Oh, wow. But I mean, you
Amazing.
never know what you're going to see at a Sci-Fi on the Rock. Duffman shows up. Where would you expect Duffman? But The Simpsons are a geeky, nerdy reference. Everybody knows how to reference a Simpson quote.
So was that like a homemade Duffman, or was that like buy it at Halloween
No,
Alley?
that was a
Duffman?
homemade Duffman. It was really well done and crafted.
That's
Sweet.
fantastic.
The cape was
Yeah.
amazing. It was great.
Awesome.
I'm jealous of this stuff because all I have is like a 20-foot Doctor Who scarf.
I feel I would be like the lazy cosplay guy and buy like 3 costumes at Halloween Alley
Sure.
during Halloween
But-
and just save them and reuse them over here now.
Everything gets accepted. That's
Amazing.
You know.
Well, I'm sold. I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm gonna come this year.
Sci-Fi
and
on
there's
the Rock
nothing
11
more
at the
you can do
Sheraton.
it. Yeah, with Mike Barrington.
Yep.
That's how it's gonna have to be titled. I want to see that on the back of the buses. I saw one on the way here. Actually, they haven't taken them off the buses
Oh,
yet.
God.
Yeah, so it's great.
I love it.
But take me into, because I'm all about the tech stuff. So
Yes.
take me into the organizational side of what had to go into Sci-Fi on the Rock 10. How many volunteers are running this? Like, what's your committee look like? Like, what? Tell me all about that side.
We have a volunteer committee of 27 people
Wow.
who are running various jobs through the year. Mm-hmm. Myself as vice chair, I kind of help oversee the whole thing to come together.
Right.
But I also am director in charge of vendor sales, of selling the tables and bringing my vendors together, keeping
Okay.
them in communication. Kit is our volunteer coordinator. She's in charge of bringing the volunteer army together.
Nice.
Like, we're 27 volunteers ourselves. We're not collecting any kind of a paycheck for
No,
this.
of course.
We're crazy enough to do this for the love of it.
Yeah.
But then we need support on the day, so we put together a volunteer army of another 60 people
Wow.
to run around and help. Then there's the security guards on top of it.
So you're tickling 100 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the technical aspect over the year, I mean, we have a meeting once a month, and from January it goes twice a month. We have meetings to make sure everything is smoothed out.
Yeah.
And just
And you guys have the wizard that is Rick Power.
doing our technical setup. He came on board 2 years ago, and it's fantastic having Rick
Yeah.
around. We've got enough computers picked up that the tech side of things, if there's stuff that's needed, like we'll send out a list to who's doing panels and say, this is what we have.
Yeah.
What would you require after this? And I think the only thing we're missing right now is the different adapters that you need for a Mac. Sorry, Mike.
Call me.
Call you?
Yeah.
Good. I will be.
I have the HDMI and I have the SVGA.
I will be to borrow stuff because, yeah.
Yeah, you can have those. They were like $5 on Amazon.
Like some of the stuff that we get, we do beg borrow from people that have it. Like my mixer that we're using now was used in one of our panel rooms this year because we realized we needed an extra mixer.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
I called you a month ago looking to borrow a mixer,
yeah, and I was like, hey, I got a broken one and I got a good one.
and we ended up using one of them, and like I said, it ended up working out fine.
Yeah.
It's good to go.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
that's
And it's
part of the tech aspect. It's organized chaos.
yeah.
And then when we got to the day itself, like this year versus even the hotel has a software that I'd never seen before that it has all their rooms saved in it for layout.
Okay.
And they can insert 6-foot, 8-foot tables and chairs and
Nice.
round tables, so they can do a full layout on a computer to know how much they can fit in whatever room.
Sure.
So that was all being set up months ago, and now I have it from last year, so I'll have it for next year. We walked into me and Rick and another volunteer, Darnell, we walked in on Thursday to do setup Thursday morning and just guide the way things were going to go. And we didn't have to do anything.
Wow.
I'd sent the map out to my vendors, so as they were coming in, they're like, I need to go over here. I'm like, yeah, you're there. And it's all good. And it just went like clockwork.
Beautiful.
No disrespect to the Holiday Inn, but the floor plan at the Holiday Inn was put the tables in the room and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because no plan ever survives the first encounter with the enemy.
No, of course not.
So, but yeah, this year was just amazing, and I can't say enough good.
Awesome. Any fun behind the scenes stories you'd like to share? Any little anecdotes? Any little funny things? Or just crazy things that now you can laugh at?
We took the actors out Sunday night, as we do every year at the end, and have dinner with the committee and screech them in. So that they don't.
Where do you guys like to do that?
We do it in private. Usually,
Okay.
we would do the private dining room at Eastside Mario's. This year, we did at a local restaurant. We just did it private with the committee, so there's no public around.
Right.
There's no pictures or video of it because we do respect the stars' privacy.
Sure.
Too.
Yeah.
One of them, when he did we did the bologna and screech, and he was there eating the piece of bologna and did his screech shot while he was still eating bologna. He's like, those two actually pair really well together. The screech cuts through the fat and it's really nice on the palate. I'm like, what? So that was good. I have an autograph from Eugene Simon that says, to Steve, the faith is now addicted to screech. Thanks for that.
Nice.
Eugene. Funny little stuff like that.
Funny little things like that. Yeah.
It's just nice to get to sit down and hang around with these guys as people.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
That's like going back to wrestling for me. That's been a neat part about meeting like a lot of the people that I've met over the last couple of years. A car ride with the $1 Million Man.
Yeah.
And he decides to, kind of break the mood. He's going to use a fart sound app on his phone out of the blue, just in the middle of the night on the Trans-Canada Highway, and that's how he's going to break the ice. And I thought that was awesome.
I've heard about road trips with a few of the guys.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just great stuff.
Well, I mean,
you were talking about an autograph
yes.
that you have. So the best autograph I've ever heard in, the best autograph I've ever seen in my life is my buddy John Long, who I worked with closely with wrestling. John. Yep. He got an autograph from Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Nice.
Now John was our producer for LCW for a long time, and they had just done a bunch of promos that they were doing. You're already laughing, aren't you?
Yeah, I've heard this story before, and I know what you're talking about. I know where it's going. And
it's this long day. So Jim Duggan is very much familiar with John and his name.
Oh no.
So John has this, I think it was like Legends of Wrestling video game that WWE had put out, and there's Jim Duggan's face on it. So he's like, do you think you could sign this for me? Because John has a great collection of games and stuff too. John has a huge collection of NES games.
I've seen it. Yeah.
So he says, "Can you sign this game for me?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Sure, no problem." And then he signs it, and he says, "What's your name?" And he goes, "John." And he goes, "Okay, Walt." So he has this autograph to Walt. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It's the best thing ever. God. I love it.
My first meeting with an actor by the name of J.G. Hertzler from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was General Martok.
Okay.
But I was excited when we brought him in because I was a fan of a 90s TV show on YTV called Zorro.
I remember Zorro.
And in the second season of Zorro onward, he was the alcalde.
Okay.
He was the bad guy.
Right.
And so he comes into the Holiday Inn, and this man does not have an off switch. He is in a character at all times. So he comes in and he's not demanding, but commanding at the desk to be, to sign in. And I said, "You must be J.G. Hertzler." He said, "I must be if I must be, and you must be." I was like, "Steve, I'm vice chair, run the place." "Excellent. You can show me to the chancellor's quarters." I'm like, "Well, the chancellor's quarters are under renovations, but the alcalde suite is just this way." "Fabulous, Mendoza, get my bags." And he just never dropped character. and I looked at him, I was like, "But alcalde, the boroughs, they're tired from carrying the baggage." He said, "You'd be a good Mendoza." And off we went.
Nice.
Yeah. It's the stuff like that people don't see.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
happens. But,
And those are the type of stories that I just live for. I love that kind of stuff.
You know, it's been a fun ride. It's been 10 years and it's still gonna go.
It's 10 years and you still haven't begun yet.
No,
right?
I'm just getting started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shall we switch gears into a little bit of wrestling? Would that be okay?
I was just gonna say, I was like, we got some stuff to talk about. There's a ton of stuff we can talk about. We might even have a part 2.
Yeah, I mean, there could very easily be a part 2 of this because there's so much.
Well,
to
and we
dive
haven't
into.
even touched
Seriously.
on your podcast yet.
No, we haven't even touched on my podcast
We haven't even
yet.
looked into it yet.
That's okay.
But basically, we touched on it there for a second at the beginning. I'd like to talk a little bit about Stylin
Steve.
Yeah.
In recent years, I've actually just dropped the Jackson and just gone with Stylin
Really?
Steve.
Just Stylin
just
Steve?
Stylin Steve.
And you didn't care to tell me?
Well, how long has it been since I've actually entered the squared circle?
Well, that was going to be my first question. Is obviously, I mean, that's how all 3 of us met through wrestling. Probably almost 15 years ago now.
Yep.
Tell us about how you entered, but also what you've been doing recently. I haven't seen you around. You kind of stepped away a little bit.
I started, 1995, 1996. Adam Peddle took me to an NCW show at St. Teresa's Parish Hall.
I don't know. Is that blasphemy? Were we talking about Adam Peddle, like Jason the Terrible?
We're talking about
CZW?
No, we're talking about Lumberjack.
The Lumberjack Axe Williams
at
the time. And this was pre-Lumberjack. He was doing commentary on the video camera at the time. So I go to the show at St. Teresa's, and he's talking commentary, and he waves me over at one point. We're just talking for a second, and the two of us feed off color commentary off each other. And me and Adam doing this has always been brilliant in our own minds. But apparently it went over well with the people that heard it, the wrestlers that heard it after the fact. They were like, he's buying this. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just selling it. I'm doing commentary on what's going on. So this continued for a couple of shows. And then we were at St. John Bosco in the Ghouls doing a show.
St. John Bosco in...
Not the Ghouls, in Shea Heights. St. John Bosco in Shea Heights. Sorry. My local geography is screwed up. Okay. And Adam was told he had to wrestle. And he's like, okay, so who's going... Because he was doing commentary and announcing at this point. And he said, well, who's going to announce? And we're like, oh, we didn't think that far ahead. Steve can do it. I'm like, I can what?
I can what now?
Because at the time, and 1996 is when I graduated high school, I had a paralyzing fear of public speaking. Up through school,
I never would have said that.
Up through school, I would take the 0. There was no way I could get up and talk in front of people. And they're like, Steve can announce. What? But when you're in that kind of a situation, and it's different than any other kind of public speaking that you can do.
100%.
It's sort of the same as a concert would be. It's the atmosphere that gets set when you step into that ring, and the light over your head is the only light on, and you can't see the audience. Mm-hmm. There is a creative freedom in there. There is a way that you're not addressing, and you don't have to be afraid of being judged because you can't see these people. So you're just there talking and doing a delivery. And I slipped into a radio announcer type character that would professionally, polishedly do these because I can do a pretty decent radio voice. Mm-hmm. And that is where Stylin Steve started, just as the unnamed announcer.
Cool.
It wasn't until we did a show in Torbay. Why the hell we were in Torbay, I don't know.
I could think of one reason.
I think it was the only show we ever did in Torbay at the time.
Is that the one that just turned out to be 4 people and then you decided to train people the rest of the show?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the wrestlers ended up hitting the referee with a chair, hitting Dale with a chair.
Right.
And
the boss? Dale?
Dale got his eye cut open.
Great.
Which was hilarious. He could close his eye and you could still see the eye. I was like, wow, that's disgusting.
Ew.
So, but then the cameraman asked me for my opinion because I was delivering, again, color commentary. And he was like, well, what's your opinion of this? And so I go in front of the camera and go off on this rant. And the only way to sign off the rant is, for NCW, I'm Stylin Steve, but I needed a last name. So I just threw Jackson on the end of it as an afterthought.
Right, okay.
That just came out of thin air. Which to this day, there's still people that were involved in wrestling that believe my actual last name is Jackson.
Yeah, because
Steve Jackson sounds legitimate, and he's a wonderful game designer.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how that came about.
That's pretty awesome, because it was you actually you were in the ring when I cut my first promo ever, and I was just basically walking in a circle, staring at the floor, and I hear you mumble, "Talk to them, not the floor."
And it went from there.
It did. It exploded.
And I had fun up through NCW, and then the division happened that brought about CEW. And
We're talking 98 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I tried to do both. Because I was just announcing. I had no, we'll call it a political view one way or the other about what was being done by management or behind the scenes.
Sure.
I just wanted to announce and get exposure.
Yeah.
That worked for one show of each.
Sounds about right.
Then an understanding was reached that I would not continue with NCW.
Okay.
And so I went with CW full time when we were down to the CLB Armory years. Or not CLB Armory years, the Cornerstone years.
Yeah.
And that was fun and amazing.
I never had so much fun as I did those, and I was but a teenager at the time.
The Cornerstone shows were a bar show was a different atmosphere entirely.
Oh, completely. I've seen some of it on tape throughout the years, and it definitely was different. I mean, I guess it kind of varied itself the same as I guess the hardcore NCW years, but with an adult and drunk crowd.
Yeah, and then
it was a certain type of special.
As time wore on, and some of the crowd started to dissipate, and the momentum started to drag, and shows were getting a little less, but there was a bigger animosity that was developing that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And I never did like to get involved in any of it. I never spoke ill of either side to try, because I didn't. The only way to put it is I didn't care. I'm not saying I don't care about the hatred. I don't have time for this. We're here. We're trying to be professional, air quotes.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And it just came to a head where I got fed up with that, and I walked away.
And that's something that's been very prevalent, I guess, in past years of Newfoundland wrestling, whether it be NCW, LCW, CEW, or whatever iterations that were going on at the time.
RPW, PWA, FTW.
It was always
all
very...
of them.
All very at each other's throats, kind of disagreements between workers, disagreements between management. We've talked about it before, and now it's probably the healthiest it's ever been.
Yeah, from
Definitely.
what I hear.
Yeah. These past few months now have just been crazy.
I was out for about 2 years, and you called me and said, I need an announcer.
Yeah, that was PWA, wasn't it?
No, that was still NCW at the time.
Was it?
Yes. It was our last run through NCW.
Huh.
And you said, I'm stuck, I need an announcer. And I said, if anybody else had asked me, it would have been a no.
Yeah.
But you called. And me and you being the friends with the R. I said, I'm not leaving you hanging.
Huh.
So I came back.
All right, then.
And then we did move on to... Which one came... PWA came first, right?
Yeah, it was CEW, NCW.
Yeah.
I think that's what you came back to.
Yes, that's what I came back to.
Yeah. And then the guys started up PWA.
Yeah.
And then I was...
And then PWA evolved into RPW.
Yeah. It's a polite way of putting it.
It's just kind of a slow morph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was the monstrosity that was RPW. And I think that was probably...
That was my last run.
That was your last run there?
Because I didn't come back after the show I walked out of.
Yeah, we did a show.
At the Cornerstone.
No,
not
it
the
was
Cornerstone,
at
at
Junctions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like... I mean, I was way done then anyway.
And that was the end of Stylin Steve, was that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, there was just way too much going on and so many different egos and stuff like that.
And health and safety violations.
Well, of course. Yeah, of course. But, and that was like the beginning of the end for me anyway. Or not even the beginning of the end. It was like the middle of the end.
I loved when I walked out and one of the parties in question, because I'm not going to name anybody, because I'm not going to...
No, that's fine. No for mudslinging or whatever was going on.
There was a disagreement and I left. And one of the parties in question was like, well, who cares? We don't need him anyway. And Mike and another guy are like, he just left with your theme music. Yeah. And the ability to play it.
Yeah.
So they did need you a little more than you thought.
And, he's also the ring announcer. And, and he's like just this like rock that you can always depend on. And those couple people in question just didn't care.
Yeah. The Junction setup was unique in that it was ring announcing and running stuff from the DJ booth. at the time. So.
The DJ booth being on the second floor overlooking the ring.
Oh, I'm familiar. I've been down there for many a rock show.
Yeah.
That was as far as a wrestling announcer goes, that was an awesome perch to be in.
It was
the safest place to be.
It was great too, because if anyone had to cut a mic spot, you just lower the mic down to them.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And if I needed to cut them off, I just drained out the fader.
Yeah,
Just Michael Buffer style. Just
that's what
like
we were going
lower
for,
it down.
Exactly.
Got a little pulley.
Yeah. Didn't even have a pulley.
Didn't even have a pulley. It was just
with
down
your
it
hands.
goes.
Yeah, it was a good time. Well, I mean, it was. There were a lot of good times.
There were a lot of good times. I'm
times.
still impressed at the design of the ring at the time that it fit into junctions. Sideways, and with 2 short legs on it.
2 short legs and 2 long legs, and we still had a bunch of wood holding it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's makeshift, like pretty much everything else in Newfoundland wrestling for the most part.
But that's the thing that goes between all these things we're talking about, is just the making it work attitude.
Yeah.
You know?
The cunning design behind that ring, that it had 2 complete sets of posts. That was a long set of posts and a short set of posts.
So you could essentially wrestle in the living room if you had to.
Depending on the size of the venue that you were in. If you needed a lower ceilings, then you had it. And
it's still used to this day.
That ring is still in use?
Yes.
Wow.
It is.
Who has it?
Legend City Wrestling.
Oh, okay, cool. I wasn't sure who had it now.
Yeah. They don't it's been a long time since I've seen the short posts used, but they recently used them.
And
they did in at Uptown.
Yeah. And quite recently I've been asked to do a return.
Yes. I know.
I got a message during Sci-Fi on the Rock about doing a show the following weekend, and I'm like, I can't commit to anything, I cannot. Yeah. I am after this.
Guess who ended up doing it?
You did.
I did.
Because Sci-Fi on the Rock, I love, and I will love till the day I die. And running it is a joy and a pleasure. But when we start Thursday morning doing setup, I don't sleep until Monday night when I get home.
Yeah.
By say that, I mean I'll catch a 2-hour nap at some point.
But it's just busy. You got a lot of stuff on the go. You got catering to people. And
exactly. And then you're there with the actors at night, and you're there trying to wind down at night with some of the crew. And it's like, well, okay, next thing it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours sleep, I'm back up at 7 because we got to go again.
Yeah.
But I love doing that, but at the same time, it does take a toll on your body. Mm-hmm. So I book a couple of days off work following Sci-Fi on the Rock.
Like you would.
To recharge. And so I get this...
I believe you call it hibernating.
This year I said I'll be in a coma if anybody needs me.
Yeah.
So when I got this message to announce, I'm like, I cannot mentally or physically commit to doing that next weekend because I'm not even going to be near fit recovered.
Sure.
So, but who knows what'll happen down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never say never.
I'm sure the offer will be made once again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the door is open, and like I said, the wrestling scene right now is about as healthy as it's been. Mm-hmm. With that said, have you seen any local wrestling in recent times?
Not in about 5 years.
Okay,
honestly.
So essentially, I made my return home 5 years ago, and that's kind of where I picked up. I've been in and out through various means and different promotions and whatnot as the time goes, but right now we got 3 promotions who are in heavy swing. We got Cutting Edge Wrestling, who are, I guess, on their 3rd iteration now, second, 3rd,
4th, I think.
4th, maybe. Yeah.
Legend City Wrestling, who are still running strong. I believe they ran a couple of shows a couple of weeks ago. Got another several shows coming up in a week or 2. Cutting Edge Wrestling has a show tomorrow night, actually. This is Wednesday.
So Thursday night.
Yeah.
By the time this gets online, it'll have passed, but yeah.
So we'll talk about that the next podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about the results.
I think it was the Legend City show. I got an interesting blast from the past picture of one of the guys riding in the back of a U-Haul.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Labrador.
Yeah.
We dragged Colin kicking and screaming.
You did Labrador in the back of a U-Haul?
Yeah.
Shh.
Was bad
Don't
enough.
tell anybody.
It was bad enough going from here to Witless Bay.
Listen.
No, Placentia. We did Placentia in the back.
Yes. But listen, those 1,750 kilometers on a dirt road in the back of a U-Haul on a cot.
In the middle of the winter.
Freezing cold, with the carpet over me trying to get a nap. I've never slept better in my life.
I'm pretty sure Mike lit a fire in the back of the U-Haul.
And there's also new.
New Evolution Wrestling,
yeah.
who we've all done some work for at some time or another. But that was kind of what I was getting to. They got a show coming up on May 24th, I believe is their next one. But they've also, the last thing they did, they had Tony King and Dynamite Dylan Davis
the show.
have their very first meeting. Now, both of these guys have been in the Newfoundland wrestling scene
forever. I remember when they were trainees.
Well, Tony was a referee when I remember, and I wasn't here when...
So was Dylan.
Right?
Dylan, I don't even remember Dylan being a ref.
Oh, PWA. He was a ref.
I might have
PWA
been
in
gone
PWA.
at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a ref. I remember him before the definition.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. And they both, I guess, jumped leaps and bounds and come up through, and they had their first meeting in ring. And I'm actually, I've been looking for video of it and I haven't seen it yet. But from what I hear, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was well worth it.
Yeah.
My only regret for that is that there wasn't more kind of build up to it, but it was still fantastic.
But some of the best matches happen that way.
Well, this is true.
And now they're building towards the next one because they're going to have a rematch at the May 24th show, and they're going to revisit it and whatnot. And it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it's great. If you're a local wrestling fan, it's definitely what to check out.
May 24th.
Steve's like,
It's a Tuesday, I think.
It is a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday. Yeah.
Feels like a Tuesday.
I'm working, but maybe early in the evening. Never know.
All right. Okay, well, on that note,
To view it.
we're kind of pushing an hour right now, so we'll wrap it up.
We can go over a little bit longer.
Well,
but
why don't we wrap it and we'll come back for a second episode, because I know that we got still got a ton to talk about.
We do. We have. Well, there's one thing we haven't done is we haven't talked at all about WWE or any other sort of wrestling.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to make a point of it anyway. Before we go about talking about China.
Okay, yeah.
The loss of Johnny Lauer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here we got this. I think it's a super tragic story in my opinion.
Oh, it absolutely
Any
is.
thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was. I guess Steve, go first.
I was shocked and surprised, to be honest, when I got somebody linked me on Facebook to it at night, and I was like, this can't be. And I had to double check because it was a TMZ report, and then I did a quick Google and double check, and KTLA had picked up, and I was like, okay, so this is legit. Yeah, I was like, damn.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was everybody's kind of reaction to it.
It was damn, because you remember her as China, you remember the run through the WWE, you remember the fun with the
rise and then the fall.
The rise and the fall with you remember DX, and you remember her and Hunter's storied background, and it was just a shame to hear that this happened at this.
Exactly. And I went, and started searching up some interviews and stuff that she'd done, and she actually had a really phenomenal interview just as she exited WWE back in the day with Michael Landsberg on Off the Record. And it was like China at her peak talking honestly. And it was pretty amazing just to listen to what she was saying. She talked about what happened. She just basically showed up one day and found out that, Triple H and Stephanie were a couple now. And her and Triple H were breaking up because of it. And then she showed up the following week, and all of a sudden she's off TV. No longer, she's the women's champion,
and she's off TV.
And she's not going to be used anymore, and just really sad. Yeah, to find that part out. I figured, I didn't think it was done that badly, but I mean,
2016 has been a rough year anyway.
Oh my God!
I mean, I've been inconsolable since January when we lost Abe Vigoda.
Right.
So he was my rock. He was alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, your reaction to Johnny, to China.
To be honest, I mean, obviously, I felt the same thing both of you guys did. I enjoyed watching her in the day, DX, all that kind of stuff. But then you kind of saw the I guess, for lack of a better word, the downward spiral that went with it. And you had no choice but to kind of feel a little sorry as things kind of went south.
For sure.
But the best thing, or the best part that I saw about what happened after, was Mick Foley's reaction to it.
Oh God, yes. Mick was...
He was incredible in terms of he made almost like a 2-page long
His
Facebook post.
It was incredible.
Talking about how she was such a good person and helped out
a friend
Noel.
To his kids
he basically at WrestleMania a year or two ago had invited her back to their house, spur of the moment, just to go and watch WrestleMania. It was, they had been in the same city at a con or something at the time, and he was just like, he called up the wife and was like, hey, guess what, China's coming over, we're gonna watch WrestleMania. And just the gratitude that he showed towards her, and the stuff that she did and he said, for her family.
He said where there had been kind of this downward spiral, and she had been worried about seeing him again at this convention they were at, and how the reaction was going to be, and he was just like, hug.
Yeah.
You know, because it's China.
Exactly. Like I said, I mean, he didn't care what had happened in the past or the stuff that she'd been through or whatever. It was more just like two old wrestling friends getting back together and having a good time. And he posted a very genuine picture of two of them kind of embracing and just meeting again for the first time. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and apparently that night when they got back, they met. Apparently Mick brought her home for supper.
Yeah.
And just had a nice evening and everything with family. So it's sad. And then I watched, I just want to touch on this really quick too. I watched Raw Monday night, and they had the classic, in memory of graphic at the opening of the show. And then about halfway through, they did a little tribute video. One little tiny thing bugged me about it.
Okay.
And that was the fact that throughout the video, what they basically were doing were taking other superstars and former superstars' tweets and saying, oh, what a tragic loss and all this kind of stuff. So these tweets were popping up in the middle of this
heartfelt video.
Yeah, this heartfelt video. And then what do they do but put Triple H's message in there, tragic loss, blah, 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 very corporate. And then right near the end, they put Stephanie's in. Oh. And I was just like, guys, I get it. You're probably at this point trying to do a little bit of damage control over Hunter's comments on the Stone Cold podcast, where he was asked point blank, she going in the Hall of Fame? The Stone Cold's a huge supporter of China. Yeah. Has been, it's public. And Triple H is just like, well, if you Google her...
what comes up when you Google China?
What comes up when you Google China?
Sean Waltman.
Well, it certainly comes up, but I'm changed. Anyway.
But yeah, I mean, and again, he's the head of a company,
and he's kind of national corporation.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what's changed.
The biggest thing is, at least he was honest. Now, I get it. It's kind of backhanded when he's saying the stuff on Twitter. And I mean, I'm sure maybe he doesn't have any hard feelings, but at the same time, it was like speaking from a CEO's perspective or a COO or whatever he's doing now. This is the way it is, and we're PG, we're family friendly now, and it's not kind of fitting our image.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
But just look at some of the people they've put in the past. Well, since they've gone public. They've got Abdul the Butcher in there. Right? This guy...
This is the bloodiest wrestler in history.
The bloodiest wrestler in history. The guy's forehead looks like... I don't even want to make a reference here, but...
There was the storied rumor for years that he beheaded a guy in the ring, so, I mean...
Yeah,
well, that's just wrestling stories,
and not only that,
come on now.
He's, as they were getting ready to put him in, he was being sued for basically giving other wrestlers Hep C.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, and they're going to go ahead and put him in anyway. It's...
I just Jimmy Snuka's in there too. I mean,
exactly. I just think that there's enough hypocrisy in that statement that he made. Well, you could shoot down a lot of people who are in your Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Why single that out? Why just not say you never know?
Yeah,
you never know what could happen, because that's what they say to everything else. Mm-hmm. He could have just said that and left it.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, you do never know.
Yeah.
She could be inducted next year.
Definitely going in now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's passed away now. Let's put her in. Right? Now she doesn't need to physically be there.
No.
Right? So let's do that now.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Anyway, I just think it's a terrible loss and gone way too soon. And I wish they'd handled it all.
One of many in 2016.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Not even to mention Prince, but...
Or Balls Mahoney.
Hey, he's part of the wrestling
He's part
family.
of the wrestling
if you
family,
got to
I
mention China, you
suppose.
mentioned Balls Mahoney too.
Yeah.
I don't want to
That's
mention
part of it.
I just don't want to say balls. Actually, I do. Balls.
But yeah, I mean, it's
Axel, like
yeah,
a couple of
Axel
months
Rotten.
before that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rough year at all. Like, just celebrities in general.
Well,
Yeah.
it's getting to the point where, I mean, we've been watching wrestlers die for years and
Yes,
years.
I mean-
but now it's the ones who were in their prime when we were in our
when we
prime,
were in our prime
watching.
watching days. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I guess, the guys that would soon be legends.
You're
or,
watching the
or
Attitude Era go. You're
moved along.
watching ECW heyday go. You know, not
Yeah,
that the life
you're-
expectancy of an ECW wrestler is expected to be long, but still.
But I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
I'm just waiting for the day when you hear that it happened to a Chris Jericho or a JBL and I mean those guys are guys. It's probably not going to happen sooner rather
No,
than later.
no.
You never
because
know
they're-
what could
Well, and
happen,
the thing is,
right?
you don't know what's going on. I mean, right now
Yeah.
they both look clean. They both look like $1 million bucks. But
Yeah.
I mean, it could be anybody who was involved in that era. That,
And I mean, accidents happen too.
and they do,
You
yeah.
know, things happen. But you know, Chris Jericho is actually a good example. Like, he's like an example of a guy now who's conscious that a lot of his friends are in the ground now.
Well, the
And-
majority of his friends. I
Right.
mean, if you
And
go
so,
through like the guys that he's
yeah.
wrestled with coming up,
Exactly. So he's conscious of that, and he's, you know, you can see that he's made a lot of changes in his life. Of course, he does like the yoga, and he eats a lot cleaner. I don't know if he's on a certain kind of diet, but
and he's definitely in incredible shape.
Or
I
a
mean,
life,
he's
yeah, I
doing
mean,
it may have
stage
just been a
shows
lifestyle
and-
change.
exactly,
Wouldn't call it a
definitely-
diet. It's just
yeah,
it's an adaptation of your lifestyle.
Exactly. So it's like he's doing something different, and now it's become his normal, and he's basically just taking better care of himself.
Yeah.
So he's a good example of that. I know there's lots of other people doing it too. So hopefully we don't have this long list of.
Hopefully this will taper off now as,
yeah,
as we
that's
go
what
through
I
the
kinda
year.
mean,
Yeah.
right. But
All right, well,
what a great note to
I was
end
going to
this
say
on.
now that
Dead
I
and
was trying to
dying.
end it 10 minutes ago on a really happy note. We could have come to this and started the
Let's
next
talk
podcast
about
at-
Steve's podcast. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in part 2. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah, let's finish it up here.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm Colin Fardy along with Steve Lake and the other co-host of the Mike Spot, Mike Barrington.
It's my spot.
It's the Mike Spot. And we will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Have a good day.
The pleasure was all yours. And in 5, 4, 3.
And here we are again for another Mike Spot. It's Mike Barrington. We're here with Colin Fardy and our guest again this time, Steve Lake. Stylin Steve, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I just won't leave. Hi.
We're back here again. We've got a laundry list of things that we want, and that's a good thing that we want to talk about this time around. And what we didn't get to talk about last time was much about the other things that you do, such as the Whostorian podcast.
Yes.
all about the Doctor Who. We got to touch on it just a little bit. So let's just start right off. Tell us about the podcast. You know, what's the content, what's the format, all that fun stuff. Giver.
Well, this July actually will be 5 years running. Which
That's impressive.
Is pretty good for a podcast.
Yep.
It's myself and my good friend Shannon Lush. We sit down every week. We try during the run of the show, because I'll explain that in a second. Thank you, Doctor Who. And we review the episodes. Now, we called it the Whostorian, based on an old Doctor Who fan club fan magazine here in Newfoundland that was actually called the Whostorian back in the 90s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it evolved into this podcast. Me and Shannon were talking one day, and he said it's a shame about the Whostorian that we can't bring this along, that we can't modernize it. And I said, well, why not? He's like, what do you mean, why not? And I said, I got a couple of headsets and microphones. Let's do this. And it was as simple as that. And we've evolved over time. So we'll start off every show with a little bit of banter, and then a little bit of news. And we actually do a running order. We call it Witty Banter. And then the news, and then we'll do an episode review. And sometimes it'll be current, sometimes it'll be classic, because as Whostorian, we want to bring the new Doctor Who fans into the loop with the old series, because it's been on the air 53 years. So there's this whole plethora of 26 seasons that people don't know about. So we're out to educate a bit about that.
Awesome. Awesome.
You gave us a little bit of I guess, an intro to that last time. For the people who didn't hear, or people like myself and Mike who aren't Doctor Who fans,
Yep.
tell us, I guess, the evolution of Doctor Who from the beginning right through till now. Now, just leading into that, I got something here that I picked up this afternoon.
Okay.
And it's a graphic that was online, and it basically said when they made this particular hero, they didn't give him a gun. They gave him a screwdriver to fix things.
Yep.
They didn't give him a tank or a warship or an X-Wing fighter. They gave him a call box from which you call for help. And they didn't give him superpowers or pointy ears or heat ray. They gave him an extra heart. They gave him 2 hearts, and that's an extraordinary thing. And there will come a time when we don't need, or there will never come a time when we don't need a hero like the Doctor.
Yep. That's a good summation.
Yeah.
He is an alien being from the planet Gallifrey, and he basically their people, they are called Time Lords, and originally they were set to watch the universe unfold and never interfere, and he got fed up with that, so he stole a time machine that they traveled in, and he started traveling trying to help people to make things better, and that's where the series began. In 1963 he was on the run and hiding out on Earth. And the reason it looks like this 1960s police call box is his time machine can look like anything. There's a circuit that lets it blend into its surroundings, but when it landed in 1963, it got stuck. And he hasn't bothered to fix it, so it just looks like this police call box.
Okay.
Which has led, actually, in real life, to the BBC owning the copyright on the original London Police Force public call box. So the police don't own it, the BBC own the copyright on it. Kind of like the fact that Disney owns the Mounties.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But it started out as a children's educational show. The idea was pitched by a Canadian named Sidney Newman, who moved from Toronto to London. He left the CBC to work for the BBC to develop programs. And he brought in a friend of his, a woman by the name of Verity Lambert, because he knew she wouldn't take any guff from anybody. And this is 63, so this is a big step for a woman at the time. And he put her in charge as executive producer. And he said, get your stories, get your scripts. Here's the general basic outline. He's an alien from the planet Gallifrey going around helping people. Go with it. And she went with it and had fun with it.
And no guff was taken.
And it evolved like so much from being an educational show, because the first series started out, you met the Doctor, you met his granddaughter, Susan, you met these 2 teachers that she was working with, which he essentially kidnapped to be his companions. They stumbled into the time machine and off they went to 100,000 BC. So then they explained the cavemen. And there's episodes that explain Marco Polo, there's episodes that explain the Aztecs, there's episodes like you can go anywhere in time and space, and it's educating children at the same time. Now, down the road, it became a little more fantastical. You get your alien monsters, you hide behind the couch,
So it became a little bit more Star Trek and a little less Magic School Bus.
Yes, exactly, as time went on. They ran into a unique problem 3 years in that William Hartnell, the actor who played the first Doctor, was getting progressively sicker. So they said, well, what do we do? Do we cancel the series? And this is when the series was hitting a high note. And I'm like, okay, what do we do? They said, well, he's an alien. He can change form. So they explained that if his race gets too old or gets injured or gets hurt seriously in any way, they go through this renewal process, which changes every cell in their body and heals them, but makes them a new person.
Which is how we have, 11 different Doctors, or however many
12
there
now.
are. Okay, well, see, I was close.
Yeah, you were close. And so it lets it continue on through the years. And it ran from 1963 to 1987 successfully. When some internal BBC politics and some ratings dropping and budget cuts, they put it on a hiatus. They never actually canceled the show. They just put it on a hiatus for 20-odd years.
Kind of like the Foo Fighters.
Yeah. Taylor Hawkins calls that "I Hate Us."
Until they brought it back in 2005. They made an attempt in 1996 to bring it back with a TV movie in the States to appeal to an American audience.
Which you told me last week
is a good starting point to watch.
The starting point, if you're not a fan, you should check out the 1996 movie that was on Fox.
Yeah, exactly. And then 2005, the BBC rebooted with Christopher Eccleston as the 9th Doctor, and off we went again. And it's been running since 2005 now, so 11 years. And 5 of those I've been doing the Whostorian with Shannon. We'll recap of the week. And the way the broadcast schedule works out is a little funny. Like right now, it's on hiatus again while they shoot the next season. So we don't get any new Doctor Who until this fall. Actually, no, until Christmas. We get the Christmas episode, and then the next season actually airs next year. And this is kind of becoming BBC norm now. If anybody's watched Sherlock, we're still waiting for Sherlock Series 4.
And they kind of, they do things kind of their own way, and it doesn't always follow the time schedule of regular TV.
Yeah. So in what we call the Dark Times, what me and Shannon have come to call the Dark Times, we'll start doing reviews of comic books, of more classic episodes, and there's always some news to read. But it slows down our pace from weekly to maybe bi-weekly or even monthly at this point.
Well, you can only do so much content you have, right?
Yeah, so we're still here. We're still broadcasting. It's just a little more infrequent now than it will be when the show picks up again.
So there are how many episodes of Doctor Who?
Oh my God. Thank you for that question. There's over 837 stories.
And there are how many episodes of The Whostorian?
127.
Okay, so you're moving quite along.
You're catching up. You're catching up.
We have a universe of material that we can go back to the well for to talk about.
And is Doctor Who similar? Like, I know when say Sons of Anarchy was at its peak, there are books out now, there are comic books.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of like its own little world now.
There's novelizations, there's books by a couple of different companies, there are comic books out. Titan Comics just recently got the license for them, and they're doing an amazing job. There's also an offshoot company that's been around for the past 10 years or more, Big Finish Audio Productions, and they've been doing full audio plays with Doctor Who actors. Like, they'll go get the original actors from the classic series and make new adventures with them, because the beauty of a time-traveling main character is you can write a story that fits in anywhere in that character's timeline. Yeah. So they've gotten as many of the original cast as they can. They've done many new episodes with classic Doctors. They're doing episodes with new Doctors now. So, I mean, there's so much media for Doctor Who, it's ridiculous.
I'm just going to have some fun with you now, and maybe then we'll let Mike talk.
I'm good, thanks.
Can you name all the Doctors in order?
Yeah, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh.
He's clever.
He's
clever.
William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, John Hurt as 8.5, which gets a little weird, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi.
No, okay, explain the 8.5.
They came to a point just before the 50th anniversary that they needed... it's a little politic. Christopher Eccleston did one season as the 9th Doctor and decided to walk away from the series, and has been hush about it. The BBC has been hush about it. Everything that may or may not have happened in between. There's rumors and stories and everything else.
No.
So they wrote the 50th anniversary episode that was supposed to be a multi-Doctor story, have the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctor. And the 9th didn't want to come back to do it. So they had to put somebody else in there. Now, what I think is a colossally stupid move, instead of bringing Paul McGann in as the 8th Doctor to run like that, they invented John Hurt. There's this whole big war story that happens where the Time Lord's homeworld is devastated, and the way they explain this is the character is the Doctor. He's always trying to help people. He is the man on the run. He will sacrifice to help people. And we get to what they call the War Doctor, because he's the one that broke the promise to help and started to fight. He's the one who walked away from the name. So he's the War Doctor, or, he's not just the Doctor. So we call him 8.5 is how he fits in there.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I don't know. I'm actually getting kind of interested in this. I might have to check this out.
Mm-hmm. I just don't have the time of day to catch up on all this.
Well,
but I do.
There's 800 episodes of this show. I don't know if I will ever catch up.
I sat down one time after I got a hold of every available episode from 63 to now, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I sat down and watched them all, and it took about 3 months.
Wow.
Only 3 months?
Yep.
Wow, that is what you call marathon watching. That was binge watching before there was binge watching.
Yes,
Man, you really dug in there.
It was Doctor Who and chill.
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you've been podcasting, you said, for 5 years, over 100 episodes. Let's get a little bit techie, because I know this is stuff that Mike's into.
Yay.
Tell us about your studio.
Evolution of the studio.
Yeah, go from the very beginning, how you started, right up through till now. And
Yeah.
all the mics we're talking into.
Yeah, because we're using Steve's studio right now.
Yeah. I started off with 2 Logitech ClearChat headsets plugged in USB to a laptop. Did some research and figured out that there were various products that would allow 2 microphones in USB to be picked up as microphones and not mess around with each other too much.
Yeah.
So we started recording that way, but I wasn't happy with the quality. Because those headsets are nice if you've got one person talking, but if you have 2 people talking, they're omnidirectional microphones, which tech speak is they pick up everything around them.
Yeah.
We've had
And
that problem before.
myself and Shannon ended up, because he had an open concept apartment, we ended up having to sit with the laptop on his living room table, and I would be as far as the cord could take me to the left, and he would be as far as his cord could take him to the right.
So you would go into the bedroom and close the door, and he would sit outside the door.
Pretty much is how we had to run that, and I wasn't happy with that, so
I considered just doing it in a car.
don't get ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Continue.
So then I had the opportunity to pick up some microphones by Blue, which is a Snowball, is the brand of microphone. I picked up 3 of those really cheap.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
Good microphones.
'Cause
Cheap cost, but good microphones.
I'm going to go big or go home, so I got 3 just in case we wanted another person talking with us. And we were still getting horrible echo. And then we moved from Shannon's open concept to my closed-in living room, and all our echo problems went away.
Okay, so basically what you needed to do off the top was sell Shannon's house.
Pretty much, yeah. So then, with the Snowballs, I hit a windfall 3 years ago where I won a $1,000 gift card from Staples. Fill out those surveys at the bottom of the receipts, people. People actually do win.
Mm-hmm. I remember this. I could not believe that you actually did it first.
Yeah,
and then you won.
I was like, what? I got the phone call.
Steve.
I got the phone call. I was like, I did it on a whim. I didn't even know I was going to get anything out of it. And so I looked on the Staples website, and there was this microphone, again by Blue, which is called the Yeti Pro, which was like a $500 microphone at the time. So I said, okay, I want it. So I bought that out of the gift card. And around the same time, I was working on some writing projects for a friend of mine, doing some editing for him. And he said, what do you want for it? I said, well, that mixer you got's kind of nice if you're not using it. He said, yeah, I'm not using it. So I got a Behringer mixer out of it to plug my microphone into. So then I picked up a couple of extra microphones at one of our local supply stores, and recently, within the last year and a half, upgraded to a newer mixer because my old one crapped out. And that's where I'm at now, is I have a professional grade mixer, 3 professional grade microphones, and I call it the portable studio because I can pack it up in 2 cases and be anywhere at any time.
It's quite impressive.
Like my living room or my kitchen.
Your kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done podcasts from your kitchen. I've done podcasts from conventions. I've done podcasts. I have done a podcast from my car.
You have?
I have a Bose microphone that plugs into a cell phone.
Okay.
And I've hung that over the rearview mirror, and just as I'm driving, been talking.
Nice.
And it actually comes out pretty clear.
Very nice. Very
So,
nice.
As long as you have good audio, people will listen.
Yeah.
Like, even versus when I'm doing video projects, and I've evolved with the Whostorian and doing video reviews of Doctor Who toys. The video can be not the greatest, but not horrible. But as long as the audio is there, people will watch.
If people can hear what you're saying and they get an idea of what they're watching, they're okay.
Yep, they're okay. So the big thing is audio first. So I concentrated on audio first, which Shannon says, fly her apart, Steve. Technobabble, go.
Which brings us to another point. You've done reviews on toys and stuff.
Yep.
And obviously there's a ton of Doctor Who merchandise around. Do you have much of a collection?
I've got a medium-sized collection right now, I want to say.
Compared to who?
I've got a pretty compared to even my friend Mark Todd, who lives in this province too. He is the foremost authority on Doctor Who right now, I would say. Him and Dr. Shannon Sullivan, who teaches at Mon and lives in CBS. The two of them have forgotten more than I'll ever know about Doctor Who. Shannon owns a TARDIS. His wife gave it to him as a wedding present, full size. It's in their backyard.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, but I have a medium-sized collection. Just a few. Everything I reviewed, I own, and for a while it was just the problem getting merchandise on this island. And now there's such a universe of it that you can get at different comic book shops around town. It's awesome. But there's even some stuff I would like to review that I have to get brought in from the UK, and just import costs are ridiculous.
Okay, well, I'm not going to ask you to give us a full inventory list of everything you have, because that'd be a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But give us a couple of high points. What are some of your prized possessions?
There's a 1.5 foot tall TARDIS, which is his time machine, the police box. It's called a flight control TARDIS. It lights and sound and the whole 9 yards. There's a 6-inch figure of the 7th Doctor that I picked up. I really like him because he is my favorite Doctor. There's a 6-inch figure of the 6th Doctor in a different outfit because he was in this rainbow Technicolor thing, and then the fans redid it to just a pale blue, and it looked a lot better. I gave that to Shannon a couple of years ago, but he ended up moving a couple of times, so now I'm curating curating his collection. I've got a Dalek, which is an alien death machine that's in the show. It's
scary.
It's an alarm clock for me, so it wakes me up telling me I'm gonna die.
That's kind of grim. Like,
gets me the heck out of bed though.
I don't know. That would make me want to stay. But listen, if I only got so many hours left, I'm probably just gonna lie here.
I also have a 2.5 foot tall remote control Dalek that I can move around on the floor and stuff.
Oh, see, now that sounds fun. I almost kind of wish you had that here.
He's pretty awesome. Bruce is good. I nicknamed him Bruce.
All right.
Do you have like a dog or a cat that you chase around with that stuff?
No, I got no pets. It'd be fun to do though.
Could we bring it to my house and chase my dog with it?
Yes, we could.
Because he would love that.
Yes, we could.
Whiskey just needs someone to chase him around the house. That would be fantastic.
He really does.
Yeah.
Just be like, you're going to play with me, aren't you?
That'd be awesome.
And it'll save Mike from having to run around the house after the dog all day.
Yeah, he's an awesome dog. I don't have to run around after him, but he definitely has a lot more energy than anybody else in the house. So,
all right. Well, now we've gone through the studio.
Yeah.
You've told us, obviously, you've done some product reviews and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other things you've done with the studio? Like, I believe you mentioned you do I guess it's a webcast with Sandbox Gaming occasionally.
Sandbox Gaming started a year or more ago doing a live webcast of a D&D game that they do. So they call it their Sandbox Gaming's 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons live stream. And one of them asked me about 6 or 7 months ago if I could help out because I have the audio. And like aside the microphones that we're at now, I still have 4 wireless microphones, lav mics that people can wear for formal interviews and stuff. But it works great for a webcast. And it makes the audio sound 10 times better. Like I said, if they'll watch the video, if the audio sounds good, they'll stick around.
yeah.
So they asked me to do that, and through the evolution of it, now we use 3 webcams that I picked up for the broadcast, and went last night. Actually, last night was Tuesday, and they played the game again. So I sit there and watch the levels and listen to them play and laugh and have a good time as they're struggling through a game of D&D.
And I'm guessing you understand the game.
I understand the game.
Yeah.
I'm an old nerd. I'm an old gamer. And it's a bit of fun to watch people play and not be involved myself. And there's times I'm biting my tongue going, do this.
Well, I personally, like I said, I am clueless to Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot, but I think that would be fun to sit down because it's always been something that I've seen from afar, but never ever actually. And I'll say I have no patience for cards whatsoever, so it would be an awful idea for me to play. But I do like stories and I do like that kind of thing, so it would be fun.
There's not a lot of card play to it. Like initially in the setup, you write this character who has different attributes, and then the game master, the dungeon master, spins a story around your gaming group. Say you have 3 or 4 people. They spin a story around what you're doing or why you're going on an adventure, and they talk it out. It's all theater of the mind. You're listening to what's going on, you're picturing what's going on, you're interacting with the other people in your party as your character. And if a fight comes up, you roll a few dice, and that's where the outcome comes from. I
could probably do that.
Interesting.
Basically, it just sounds like improv.
It's
essentially,
improv, and it's theater of the mind. It's amazing to play. And when you get a really good group together that gels really well, like this crowd has, it's great.
Okay, well, I need to set a reminder on my phone to watch the next time this comes up. How long does a game usually run with these specific guys?
Usually starts at 6:30. We can go 3 to 4 hours.
Oh wow! So it's pretty substantial. You're talking Monopoly time here.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the adventure.
I think it probably blows Monopoly out of the water.
And the adventure continues every 2 weeks.
And is it the same story, or does it start again at the beginning of next week?
It's a continuation of the story. The adventure continues.
Oh.
That this party is on.
Okay, well, now I'm less interested, because now I gotta go back and watch all the back episodes to find out where the story started.
You can... No, they give a recap every week, so you can pretty much catch up with where they are.
Okay, so it's like previously
pre-show.
Previously on Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, exactly.
With Sandbox Gaming. I like that.
Yeah.
See, I'm glad we had Steve on. It opens my
broadens your horizons a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I got games I could show you, my friend.
I'm learning Doctor Who.
Not just your traditional card games.
I'm learning. Yeah, well, like I said, cards are out. Like I can't even play poker, blackjack, nothing. Just I immediately see cards and my brain shuts off.
Nah, we have different games that we can show you that'll be interesting.
All right, well, we can definitely do that in the future. Like I said, I'm learning Doctor Who. I'm learning Dungeons and Dragons. So
there you go.
You're going to convert me eventually.
Yes, one of us. One of us.
You know, I'll be turning my back on hockey and football and just sit down.
No, I don't turn my back on hockey and football. I mean, I'm an LA Kings fan.
Maybe you should turn your back on hockey.
Now I can't. I don't really care now, obviously, but I do cheer throughout the year. So I mean, I'm not 100% total nerd.
I think you and Justin Crickard need to sit down and have a chat, because to be honest, I think you're the only two Kings fans I know.
Justin would be a third one that I know.
Well, there's one guy who works down at Eastern Audio, and I'm pretty sure he's the only other Rangers fan in the province. So and he makes sure anytime they play, I'll get a text message being like, "Oh man, this was great." And
Mike over there.
Mike's unimpressed. Mike doesn't like hockey at all.
You and your sports.
I don't do the sport.
Okay.
At all. So
do you like the tech setup?
Oh, I love it.
I get him involved again.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. We can go back to the podcast, though, because I do have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Oh, good.
Would you like to ask a question?
No, we blew through all mine.
Sorry. I'm an inquisitive mind.
No, I'm glad. I'm happy that we're progressing here.
Okay.
All right. So, in your 5 years doing the podcast, what are some of your favorite moments? Like, do you have just things that stand out?
There's a B-movie horror actor that we met by the name of Bill Oberst Jr. Bill was his biggest role to date was as Abe Lincoln in Abe Lincoln versus the Zombies from Asylum Films. I can't remember exactly how we branched out to do it, but Shannon's like, this would be a really cool interview to do. So we got him on Skype and did an interview, and he still maintains it's one of the best interviews he's ever done with anyone.
Well, what... Can we watch it, or is it still available online?
It's still available online. It's an interview with Bill Oberst Jr. I think it's around episode 60.
Okay, well maybe we'll link it off the mikespot.ca.
No, it's the mikespot.com actually.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
There was that. Then through Sci-Fi on the Rock, we brought in an actor from the classic Doctor Who series. His name is Fraser Hines. He acted with the second Doctor way back when. And myself and Shannon got to sit down and do an interview with him the year before last, where I completely fanboyed out.
I was going to say, we touched on it last time.
I totally fanboyed. Forget me doing anything. Shannon led the interview. I was just gushing.
So you just sat there and like batted your eyelashes?
And asking stupid, irrelevant things and making occasional comments.
I did the same thing the very first time I did an interview. I was at the East Coast Music Awards with Mike. I was the camera person for a reporter at the time. And we sat down with Gordy Johnson of Big Sugar. And Gordy was awesome. He let us sit in on his clinic and said, sure, we'll answer any questions you got. We pulled him aside for 5 minutes after the thing, and I had not a single question.
Yep. Just completely blank. Fanboy gone.
Just like, sorry.
So, but once we turned the mics off, we had a great conversation. It was like if I could have pieced something together with my iPhone just sitting out recording us, if it had sounded good, I would have run with it, but...
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works in a pinch.
Sometimes it works in a pinch.
Yeah.
We've done episodes from... we did an episode at a Tim Hortons one night. We sat down with... I think it was the Yeti plugged into my laptop, and we just went with it.
Just chatted around the microphone?
Just chatted around the microphone while sitting at a Tim Hortons.
So how was that for capturing the environment noise?
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we said at the beginning of the episode, I think we called that episode Tim Horton Here's a Who.
And how were the staff at Tim Hortons? Did you get any funny looks?
No, not at all. I don't think they really noticed.
Was it the Tim Hortons down at the bottom of the road? They see everything.
No, it was Mount Pearl.
It's like, maybe we should just go and, like, why are we doing this at my house? We should just go to Starbucks.
Exactly.
Go down to Second Cup, give them some business.
You explained at the beginning, like, we're on the road this week. We're at Tim Hortons, so that's what you're hearing in the background, and you hear us talking clearly, and then lower levels in the background, you hear plates moving and orders being placed, and people asking for coffee.
Well,
nice.
We're recording at supper time. Maybe next time we'll just do it at Burger King.
Let's just have a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you set out what you're doing at the beginning, that it's understood why it's there. Like, we did a couple of shows last year at Avalon Expo, and we said, well, we're live at Avalon Expo. We're in the middle of the floor here, so there is crowd noise. Mm-hmm. And you explain what you're doing and go on.
I remember, I don't know if I watched it or if I saw pictures of it. You did one at the Remax Center, I think.
That was Avalon Expo.
Okay.
Yeah, we did 3 episodes there. 2 actually survived.
Oh, okay.
1 got eaten, so there's part 1 and part 3.
1 got eaten?
Yep. It's just gone somewhere in my laptop.
Oh.
So there's Avalon Expo Part 1 and Avalon Expo Part 2, Part 3, the search for Part 2.
I almost lost our first episode, our pilot.
Yeah, that was scary.
I was using Adobe Audition, and I had stopped the recording, and then I hit record again. And
I had to re-record a video review because the video got... I had these 2 separate segments done, reviewing a toy, and I went to do the editing, and the videos just were not there. Mm-hmm. Ran a system recovery, they just were not there. And I couldn't go re-record the second part because this was a toy review where I just let out a whole mess of anger at how bad this toy was. And I had actually thrown the thing out at the end. So I couldn't go back and redo part 2 because the anger wouldn't seem genuine, and I'd have to dig the toy out of the trash.
Well, now I gotta ask, what toy was this that brought out that very violent rage?
It's a diorama set that gives you this little set of where the Doctor has landed and is set up and is fighting some stuff, so kids can play with it and have, like, you can use it more for display with the figures on it. But it's supposed to be this action playset, and it is just very poorly constructed and 90% cardboard and would not hold together. And my review was that.
I can understand how that would be frustrating.
I have to clear my throat.
Go for it.
Oh, that's going to be easy to cut out.
So having lost that was just a pain in the butt.
I can imagine.
But you move on from it. And Mike, you understand because it's just gone for some reason.
Well, we did end up finding it. It had recorded and it had saved, and it was tucked away in a folder, and it was there. Oh, God. But it did take a while to kind of dig it back up.
It was a couple of good Google searches to try and figure out where like the, I guess they call it like the scratch folder is.
Yeah, it's just basically getting it up where you recorded it to.
Yeah.
But on another note, you obviously had the idea to start the podcast. Were there any podcasts that you're a fan of that led you down that road? Like, what are some of your favorite podcasts?
The inspiration question.
Yeah.
Initially, no, because like I said, the conversation was as simple as Shannon going, why can't we do this? And me going, let's do it. And that's where we got to. Now, when you learn along the way, you start to run into other people doing the stuff, of course. There's 3 guys that broadcast from Nova Scotia and 2 are in Alberta now. They do a show called Radio Free Scarrow, which is a Doctor Who podcast. It's the biggest Canadian one there is. The second one being us. Because I think there's only 2 Canadian podcasts for Doctor Who.
And do you have like I guess you guys got a following, like what are your I guess your most downloaded episode kind of thing?
Our most downloaded episode right now is one we talked about the military unit that shows up in Doctor Who. And there's a whole other mess around this military unit and when it happened in the show and when it actually happened, what dates it happened. And it's me and Shannon arguing for an hour over these dates and over unit. And that right now has somewhere over, I think it's over 6,000 downloads.
Oh, wow. So do you have people like emailing in questions or that kind of thing?
I had a publishing house send me a review sample of a book last year to review. Was based on the character was based on a combination of the Doctor and Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so we did a book review out of that.
Very nice.
We're after getting... There's an audio group that have done... They're doing a new one called The Light of September, I'm trying to remember what the first audio play was they did, and I'm going to be shot for it. But we reached out to them to say, how is it? We do a Doctor Who podcast. How are you? We'd love to do some promotion for you. So we've had a couple of directors and a couple of actors on talking about the audio plays that they're doing, which ties into Doctor Who because Sylvester McCoy, who was the 7th Doctor, is in both of these.
He has a really awesome name.
Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice man to meet. I met him in England a few years ago. Completely fanboyed out when I was supposed to ask him a question again. So I know I'll fanboy. I know I will fanboy out. He was talking. He's an entertainer, first off, and it was just before The Hobbit came out, and he was in The Hobbit. He was Radagast the Brown.
Okay.
He was the wizard in that, and he wasn't allowed to talk about it. So he's telling the story. He's like, "And I play." I can't even roll my R that way. I play Radagast the Brown, and he rolls it because he's Scottish. And he's like, I think half the reason they hired me is the way I say Radagast the Brown. He's like, I love to say more about it, but it's in this movie, The Hop. And he popped his hand over his face. He's like, oh, see, that's how I can't talk about it. Every time I try and say hop, I pop over my mouth. And he's just entertaining the whole way with that. Yeah, I've met a few people and talked to actors and stuff, and it's just been a surreal trip. I never thought I would say I sat down with Fraser Hines, for instance, and say I did an interview with him. Same as, wrestling-wise, I never thought I'd say in my life that I was able to do the ring introduction for the Honky Tonk Man.
I know.
But I did it.
I never thought I'd sit in a car with Bret Hart for 3 days, but I did.
For 3 whole days.
Not whole days, but come on. I mean, it was a long trip.
But we've all, in various ways, led very surreal lives to this point.
I know.
Yeah.
Some of us more than others.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got.
I got stuff.
You got
but
stuff.
You know what? I don't know. It's
You're
just
getting more with.
I haven't sat in a car with Bret Hart for 3 days, or talked to the 7th Doctor. That's I don't know. Those aren't my things, but I'm not.
You've got
downplaying.
sports stuff though. You got hockey stuff.
I do. I got some stuff.
There you go.
Got some stuff, which apparently you don't want to talk about.
No.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Where do we go from here? Let's see. Steve, before we completely cut you off and finish up on your section of the podcast, do you have any other, like, I don't know, funny wrestling stories or just even little tidbits that you'd like to throw in about essentially anything we've talked about over the last two podcasts?
Yeah. Anything at all.
You're a good talker, so
I
like
know
I don't
I'm
mind
podcasts,
just letting you go.
You know, sci-fi, whatever.
No, I'm trying to.
Oh, that's something. Oh, you announced the date for Sci-Fi 11 the other day.
Yes, I did.
Oh.
Dropped that to the internet and broke my sleep for the morning.
Yeah, give us some news, man. What do you got?
April 28th to the 30th, 2017, back at the Sheraton Hotel. They were very happy with us, and they're happy to work with us again. So
Lovely.
Sci-Fi on the Rock 11 is going to happen.
Awesome news to hear.
Because I believe what you said last time was you're not going to say anything till the ink dries on the paper.
Well, now the ink is dry, so give us some dirt.
No, that ink is dry.
Oh.
The contracts are still pending. We have until July before we will have any confirmations on actors.
Okay, well, that just means Steve Lake will be back in July to give us an update.
Make the official announcement.
The Mike Spot exclusive Sci-Fi on the Rock announcement.
I will break the internet with these announcements, and I'm seriously biting my tongue that I can't say anything right now.
What's the Who story? And Steve Lake takes over the Mike Spot.
Oh, there will be a Who story, and there will be glad to be a Mike Spot. There will be many posts to Facebook. The internet will break on this day.
Who knows? Now this is just me kind of toying around, and I love the idea because Kevin Smith does a podcast, and he's had a bunch
Kevin
of
Smith
stuff.
does several podcasts.
Well, yeah, Kevin Smith lives his life through podcasts now is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But he's had several ideas that have come to fruition through podcasts and just him kind of just mulling stuff over on a microphone. So I'm just going to do this right now. If we can, why don't we do a podcast from Sci-Fi on the Rock 11 next year? Myself and Mike
do it up
as sci-fi, I guess, rookies, I guess is the best way to call it.
We could do that. We could call it the Mike Spot, the Rookie Edition.
Yeah, Sci-Fi Rookie Edition.
Yeah,
and we can invite people in who are taking part and say hello and get an introduction. and learn a thing or two about a thing or two.
We've had podcasts do live episodes from Sci-Fi on the Rock, either booked as a panel or people doing it in hotel rooms or me in a boardroom with my setup.
Cool.
We've done podcasts before to do Verbal Abuse, which was Shannon Lush and Chris
That
Carter.
doesn't sound fun at all.
No, that was actually a good bit of fun. That was our first 18-plus panel.
Actually,
So they were the
Okay.
first podcast, and they were the first 18-plus panel at Sci-Fi on the Rock.
I actually think Chris Carter may be a future guest of the Mike Spot in the near future. We've been in contact already.
And Console Culture did a live podcast 2 years running.
Nice.
From Sci-Fi on the Rock. It was a little rough to get audience participation in, but Adam and Barry can carry themselves really well.
Sure.
Oh, Adam's a great talker, as we know.
And the Historian ends up... I do episodes from Sci-Fi on the Rock, but it's on my downtime. So...
Which is never.
Now, which is never.
This year we didn't do one. Last year we sat down with me and Shannon and Jeff Keeping, who organizes AtlantaCon in Corner Brook, and Fat Apollo. And the four of us did a round table and just had a bit of fun geeking out.
Well,
Nice.
and that's like I said. I think there's something that we can kind of roll with. I guess in that aspect where you do have several people, and there's a lot of other influential characters who would be around that could kind of pop in and out. And
So whether you do it as part of the schedule or if you set up in the lobby or set up in a room somewhere and just cycle and
grab
record.
people.
yeah, just take it
I
all
think we
in.
can do it. As long as you have...
Yeah, I was gonna say as long
time.
as work doesn't get in the way, we should be fine.
Yeah.
So I'm a no years and running kind of guest at Sci-Fi on the Rock.
We'll see if we can
just get a
change
little
that.
bit further into May.
No, we set April. It started just because that was the first available date Darren got.
Yeah.
But it carried on. For guest availability, we're one of the first ones on the calendar. And
So you kind of like to float in under the radar.
and it's just before pilot season starts for the actors, because that's when it starts, is in May.
Right, okay.
So
That
you
makes
lose
sense.
a lot of availability from May to June because actors are doing pilots for shows. So we get in just before that. So
Sounds like a great idea.
Sounds good.
that's where the April comes from.
All right. Well, before I cut you off to talk about Sci-Fi 11, do you have any other stories and anecdotes and stuff you'd like to share?
Wrestling wise, all I got left are inside stories that aren't going to make any sense to anyone but V and Mike.
I don't know. Maybe it might just be ridiculously funny.
No.
No? Okay.
No. Podcasting, I think we have covered everything for the Historian. Sci-fi is my ever-loving passion that will continue to grow. And thank you guys for giving me another outlet to talk about it, is the main thing.
We're delighted to have you here.
More than happy to have you here.
Yeah. Right there, I think, is a good spot to end it. Thanks very much for listening again. I'm Mike Barrington.
I'm Colin Frosty Fardy.
And this has been Stylin Steve, Part 2.
Cool. Anything else, Steve?
The pleasure was all yours.
Yeah.